This finished, Rinpoche. We can continue.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, so one thing is important. One very important thing is after listening, when you listen to the Dharma, when you listen to any teachings, any lessons in general, it is important that you recall what the lesson was. So in that case, you have to remember what the teaching was, what it is about. Otherwise, if you spend 1 or 2 hours in the lecture, when you come out of the lecture, you have nothing. So there is no gain for you. So in this case, remembering or recalling what you have been taught is important, but but you have to remember or recall the right things. If you remember or recall the wrong things, then it will be of no help to you. It will just be a waste of time. So there are 5 wrong ways of remembering. So you will know that the opposite of which is the right way of remembering or right way of recalling. So the first is remembering the words, but not remembering the meaning. The second is you remember the meaning, but not the words. The third is you remember neither the words nor the meaning, and then you have no understanding. Because of that, you have no understanding of what you have been taught, what the lecture was about. And then you remember everything, so to speak, but you remember the points, but you fail to remember in which order they have to be. For example, if it's a practice, you remember in which order you have to practice this and that. So these 5 are known as the 5 wrong ways of remembering or recalling the teachings, and one should avoid that. So to elaborate a little bit on this, so the first one, comprehending the words but not the meaning, right? So this aspect, so sometimes we are so entranced by the beautiful words when someone is teaching in a very beautiful manner, when the voice is sometimes the voice of the teacher is very soothing and calm. So you just listen to the words and you just keep on listening to the words that's being spoken, but not really paying much attention, because you don't need to pay attention. Sometimes the teacher have that quality, such as by listening to his voice or her voice alone, one gains the peace of mind and all that. So this happens a lot in many teachings, when the teacher is speaking very slow, quite slowly, and in a low baritone sort of voice. Then people love to be around that kind of teacher, and then people just keep listening no matter what. So without paying much attention to the actual word that's being spoken. So most of the time, when you speak quite when you speak slowly and in a low baritone voice, usually people seem to be interested in what you are talking about, and so that's why many sort of speakers, try that trick, if you like, and so people just keep listening and without paying much attention, and when the 1 hour, 2 hour session is over, and when they go back home, there is nothing to take from the teaching, and then they usually say something like, "Oh, the journey itself, it's the practice. There is no destination to be reached." But the main thing, of course, when you listen to a Dharma teaching, of course, if you get peace of mind by listening to the voices of the master alone, That is something good. I'm not saying it is a bad thing. But if you have nothing to take back home, then it's like going to the market and coming back home empty-handed. So it's important to have something. It's important to be able to bring something back. And so the point here is that don't be attracted to the teaching just because the voice of the teacher is appealing, and for that matter, the teacher himself or herself is attractive. And sometimes you are just attracted to the teacher and you just keep listening, looking at his face or her face, and just keep listening to his or her voice, and that alone suffices. So that is it is okay for for ordinary purposes, in general purposes, that is fine. But if you are trying to do Dharma practices, then this is not sufficient. So the same goes in the other manner, which is if the teacher says something like, okay, the practice is most important, you don't have to learn this or this or that, words are not important at all, and you don't have to read any books, you don't have to do this or that, just meditate, right? So come to the point, come to the meaning, come to the point, just meditate. No need for words, no need to recall any of the teaching, this and that. That is also a flaw, in a sense. The teaching that we have is like the fuel that we need to travel far for our journey, our spiritual journey. So if you receive no teaching, if you don't receive any of the words, then you have no fuel to take you for the long journey. So the teachings are necessary. That the books, the reading, the listening of the Dharma, the books, the teaching, all of them are very much necessary. But just don't go for those such and such books or such and such teachings just because the voice of the teacher or the way the prose, the way the book was written is so beautiful, and so and then you just keep reading that. So there is a difference between Dharma books and novels, storybooks. Storybooks you have to listen to. When you listen to the storybook, you listen to be distracted. So you are entrenched in the story, in the realm of that book, and then that's it. But when you listen to the Dharma book, of course you have to pay attention. But at the same time, it is not just to spend or waste your time in reading the book alone, but rather gain something from reading that book. So you have to be able to take something from it. There should be some gains from that. And so for that, one has to pay attention both to the meaning as well as the words. Oh yeah. So when it comes to the remembering, one has to remember both words and meaning. So both words and meaning are important. So neither is more important than the other. The words and meaning has to be balanced out. Now, when you have both meaning and the words, but if you don't note in which order the teaching was given, for example, if you were told to practice with morality first, then with morality, then with determination, then with meditation, and so on and so forth. For example, we have the 6 perfections. First with generosity, then with morality, then with determination, effort, and so on and so forth. So if you mix them up, instead, if you say something like, "Oh, all the other practices, like the 5 of the 6 perfections, are in order to are there to build up my practice on the 6th perfection, which is the wisdom. So therefore, wisdom is the most important, and I will just pick up wisdom and do away with all the others." Then, if you do that, you would not have built the strength needed to practice or to to sharpen your wisdom. So if you want to run for a marathon, for a marathon race, you can't just go and run a marathon just like that. You have to train for the marathon. You have to train for the race for many months. So similar, just as you can't jump into a marathon race and hope to win the race or just to be able to participate in the race. Similarly, one cannot just jump into the highest and the best and the most advanced practice just like that. So this also comes into question the practice of Tantrayana, Vajrayana practices. So of course, many of the teachers, when they say when they talk about the Vajrayana, they always say Vajrayana is the highest and this and that. But it does not necessarily mean that just because it's the highest and so on and so forth, it does not mean this is the best. This is the one that suits us the best. So we have to, go step by step, and that is where the so-called preliminary teachings or the Ngondo, the Ngondo circle of teaching comes in. And so the book that we are going through these days, Words of My Perfect Master, is a perfect example for that. So we will go through step by step in the right order. So step by step is nothing more than going in the right order. So when you take things in the right order, then you will be able to. It'll be more effective during your actual practice. For example, when you learn, as a kid, when you learn the alphabets, you learn from A, B, C, D to Z. You don't learn with D and M and Q and R. So you don't start like that. In the beginning, you have to start with A, and then end with Z. So A for apple and B for ball, and something like that. So as you progress in your in your linguistic skills, then you no longer have to follow the A to Z sort of algorithm. That sort of formula does not have to be followed. You can start with T and start going on like H.E.Tongkhor. So you can make up any forms. You can form up any words that you like. But when you first learn, of course, you have to go with A. You have to learn from A to Z. So that order has to be maintained when we learn something as simple as alphabets. So that means when we are going through a spiritual journey, then of course it's necessary that we maintain the right order. So maintaining the right order, even if you get all the words and all the meaning correctly, but if you mess up the order, then again you will not be able to. So what will happen is, just as I said, you will go to, this is what many of us do. Many Tibetans do that, and many Vietnamese do that, many Chinese do that. Many of the so-called Mahayana Buddhist practitioners, we always do that. We always go for the highest, the most secretive practice, the most advanced practice. So the practice is advanced, it's okay. But if you are not prepared for the journey, if you're not prepared for the advanced practice, then if you do the advanced practice, then you're going to fail miserably. You're going to enjoy yourself on the path. So therefore, it is something to be avoided. So in order to know which practice is perfect for you, you have to know everything in the right order. And this we can do from the book that we are covering today. So once you have that, so the third one, we covered one, first, second, and fourth. The third one, of course, is not getting the meaning and the word. Then we all know what will happen if you don't get the meaning and the words. Then, of course, all the time that you spend has been sort of wasted because you were not able to gain anything. If you just gain the words, then you have something to mutter, you have something to recite. If you gain the meaning, you have something to practice. Even if you do not know the right order, you are able to practice something. But if you do not get either the meaning or the words, then you have nothing. So if you remember the three sort of the three flows of the containers, which is the container that has been upside down, then you're not paying any attention, then you will not be able to gain anything from the teaching. So these are the not to do things. And now to do things, what conducts one should be following. Previously, we talked about what conducts we should be avoiding. Now, what sort of conducts we should be following. So here comes the so-called, here in the book it says the 4 metaphors. It's more like 4 notions. The notion of, so the 4 metaphors, the 4 notions has to be has to be kept. And the first notion is that to think of oneself, to yourself as a sick person, a sickly person, and the Dharma as the remedy or the medicine, and the spiritual friend or the Sangha as the the teacher, which is the spiritual friend. The spiritual friend is a synonym for teacher. It comes from the Sanskrit word Kalyana Mitra, which means virtuous friend, virtuous ally, someone who helps to, someone who assists and helps you develop spiritually. So that is the name for a teacher. So a teacher is someone who helps to develop spiritually, develops you spiritually. Someone who is able to assist and support and help in developing you spiritually. And so of your spiritual friend or your teacher as a skillful doctor, and of diligent practice as the way of recovery. So these are the 4 notions. Look at yourself. Have the notion of yourself as a sickly person, and the Dharma as the medicine. And because you are sick, you have to take a medicine, and that medicine has to be prescribed by a respectable doctor. If the doctor is not skillful enough, just as we talk about, one of the worst sort of maladies in the world is cancer. So in that respect, the medicine for cancer is the best medicine. Since the cancer is the worst disease, the medicine for cancer is, you might be able to, you might say, is the most advanced and the best medicine there. But if you have a headache or a stomach ache, then you are not supposed to take cancer medicine just because that medicine is the most advanced one, because that medicine has been the most expensive, most advanced, and so much research has been gone through for the cancer medicine. So I should take the cancer medicine because this is the best medicine. No, you have to take the medicine that is appropriate to your malady, your sickness. So that's where the skillful doctor comes in, and so the doctor has to be skillful enough to prescribe the appropriate medicine for the person who is sick, be able to diagnose the malady, the illnesses of the sick person, and then be able to diagnose properly and then prescribe properly. So for that matter, one needs a skillful teacher, just as one would need a skillful doctor when you are sick. So many times we have this kind of thing like, oh, I've been sick for a long time and I've been to this and that doctor, but none of that helps. So that actually says, that says a lot about what kind of doctor that you are, what kind of doctor that you are seeing. The doctor may not be skillful enough to diagnose the illnesses that you are going through. So, and even after seeing the perfect doctor, and even after getting the perfect medicine, even after even after recognizing that you are sick, but if you don't take the medicine properly, if you don't follow the diet properly, if you don't follow the instructions of the doctor properly, then if you put the medicine on the table and just leave it like that, then you will never become, you will never recover, you will never become well. So similarly, one has to follow the practices diligently in order to become well and fit. So next, what we are going to cover is something called in the to-do list in the conduct that we have to follow. Is something called the 6 transcendental perfections. The 6 transcendental perfections, or the 6 perfections as we normally call it, as we all know, is generosity, discipline or morality, effort or diligence, then concentration, and then wisdom. So normally we call them the 6 perfections. So that 6 perfection can also be applied during the mode of conduct when you are listening to the Dharma teachings. So this is very important. We talk about this on the very first days. So when we talk, this is not just the preliminary practice, in the sense that it is something that we have to do before the practice, and during the practice we just forget everything. Even though this book is known as the Ngondo, Ngondo is in the sense of this is a book that is essentially mandatory for one's practice before as well as during the practices. So even though the Tibetan word can be a little bit, the Tibetan word Ngondo can be a little bit misleading, because Ngon means before, so it goes with the English word preliminary. So it sounds as if this is something necessary in the beginning or before the actual practice, but during the actual practice we don't need need to follow these. But actually, it is a practice that we have to follow very much during our so-called actual practices. So one thing we can see here is the so-called actual practices of the 6th perfection we apply in the very beginning of our teaching. So the 6 perfections is not something that we practice when we come out of the teaching room, and it's not something. The 6th perfection is not something that we practice when we come out of the practice room. We come out of our teaching the teaching arena, and then when we go to the meditation cave or something, then we start doing the 6th perfection. No, it's not like that. The 6th perfection has to be practiced when you are receiving the teaching, when you are in the meditation room, as well as when you are walking around from the teaching arena to the meditation room. So when you are dealing with people, when you are dealing with people you like very much, and you dislike very much. So on all occasions we have to practice the 6 perfections. Whether we can do it or not, that is another matter, but we must try to do that as much as we can, and that's how we develop spiritually. When we are sitting by ourselves in a meditation cave or just listening to the teaching, sometimes the teaching sounds so good that you feel like you can do everything. Sometimes we venture into the narrative of the teaching rather than the teaching, following the teaching itself. And when we are in the meditation room, there is nobody there to annoy us, nobody there to disturb our mind, just ourselves. So we can say, oh, I'm practicing patience, I'm practicing diligence, this and that. But when you are actually on face-to-face with other people, then this is the actual sort of like test. Actual practices comes. So you can sort of hone your skills solitarily by yourself. When you are alone, you can practice on patience, you can practice on diligence. But the actual practice, the actual practice does not come in the books. It does not come from the teaching. It does not come in the meditation room. But it comes in the world that we live in, the world that we breathe in, and the world that we live in. When we have to interact with other people, this is where our practices comes handy. So in this regard, the 6 perfections, right? Giving, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and the wisdom. So how we do that during the receiving of the teaching? first, we usually, when we receive the teaching, we arrange the teaching arena, make the altar, make offering, and all these things. So the offering, which is a giving aspect, comes as the practice of generosity, comes as a part of the generosity practice. Now, after that, you put everything in order. So putting everything, all the material things in order, arranging things properly. This is a practice of morality, because morality is to do with order. When you have chaos and order, with morality comes order. Without morality, there is chaos. So when you put everything externally, all the materials in the right order, and then internally, when you control your own behavior, behavior meaning internal as well as external behaviors, like the way you speak to people, the way you interact, gesture towards people in the teaching room, as well as in your. So since we are talking about the teaching arena, the mode of conduct for teaching itself, receiving the teaching itself. So let's talk about behavior in the sense of how we interact or gesture towards our fellow sangha, as well as how you maintain your psychological motivation. Then comes the do not harm any living being, which is so abstaining from harmful activities. So this is a practice of patience. Then having genuine faith in your teacher. This is a practice of diligence, sometimes also called efforts. But I think diligence is a more appropriate word. And then listening to the teachings without any distraction, that is the concentration. Then questioning the teacher about any doubts that you have. That is the wisdom aspect, because wisdom is nothing other than discriminating between what is right, what is wrong, what is proper, what is improper. So that wisdom is nothing more than discriminative mental factor. So it discriminates, it just distinguishes what is what is, so therefore, in order to discriminate, in order to identify properly things, then you need to question, you need to question, and you need to investigate, you need to interrogate your teacher, so to speak. So when you have all these in line, then you have the 6 transcendental perfections of a listener, of a student. So then the last sort of subject is something called the other modes of conduct. So this is more to do with physical conducts. So there is the to-do and the not-to-do list again. So in the to-do list, do not teach those who have no respect. Do not. So this is from the Vinaya Sutra. So from the mode of conduct that is prescribed to the precepts that is prescribed to the monks by Lord Buddha. So do not teach to those who have no respect, those who cover their heads although in good health. So if you remember last week's teaching, we covered the topic of the headgears. Headgears are associated with social status back in the day in India. So therefore, people, when they come with the headgears on, they're actually telling you that, I'm from the high caste, and maybe the teacher should respect me, and so on. So you have to get the idea. So it is to do with the social status. And those who carry canes, weapons, and parasols. So parasol again is a form of parasol is an umbrella to block the sun. But people who usually carry parasols back in the day are those who are well-to-do people, and so when they carry the parasol, they're actually saying that they come from a high social status. And weapons can be a little bit intimidating to the teachers, and so the canes as well. So people who are whose heads are swathed in turbans. So those people one should not teach. This is the mode of conduct, and this is from the teacher's point of view. So do not teach to these kind of people. So some of these rules apply nowadays, some of them does not, because parasol or umbrella nowadays is inexpensive. It's not expensive at all. If somebody carries a umbrella, it doesn't mean you are high social status or rich or anything like that nowadays. So if you use a parasol, there is no sort of restriction. But weapons, maybe that's a that's, so these are the conducts that one should avoid, and the conducts that one should apply is from the student. One should take a lower seat, the lower than the teacher, because you are receiving the teaching. Normally, when you give someone, the receiving hand is always below the giver's hand. So the receiving, in order to, so this is not just that, but it is more to do with the psychological effect of, pruning your ego, lowering your ego. So take a lower seat, cultivate the dignified bearing of thorough discipline. With your eyes brimming with joy, drink in the words like nectar and be completely concentrated. This is the way to listen to the teaching. So, so this is the way, the modes of the conduct, both physically and psychologically. And from next week onwards, we will go towards the teaching itself. Okay, now further questions, please.
We have one quick question, Rinpoche, just related to what you just the last stanza. Do not teach someone who carry a cane. Yes. What if someone needs a cane to? Sorry, Rinpoche.
Yeah. So sorry, as I said, yeah. Right. You want to translate that? Yeah. So as I said just now, some of these rules apply in today's time. Some of other rules apply in today's time. Like the headgear thing also is not a big deal. Nowadays we have to cover our face with mask. In previous time, if you cover your face with a mask, that is very questionable to the teacher. Like a very suspicious looking guy. But nowadays, if you don't cover your mask in public gathering, then you are becoming suspicious. You are being a suspicious person. And so the same, I give you the example of the umbrella. Back in the day, parasols are only for the rich and the wealthy. But nowadays, anyone can buy an umbrella. It's not expensive at all. So the same goes with cane. If you need a cane, there is also in the book itself, it also said covering your head even if you're not sick. So that if thing implies that if you are sick, you can cover your head even during Buddha's time. So if you have a feeble body, then you will need that that stick, that cane, crouch to help you, to assist you. And in today's time, when we in many of the Dharma centers, there is seats, chairs allocated for people who cannot sit cross-legged. So when they sit on the chair, in many Dharma centers, they're actually above the teacher. That is still okay because they don't come with the egotistical mindset, thinking, okay, I'm sitting on a chair, so I'm higher than the teacher. That sort of mindset is not there. So sitting on the chair is also fine because you have a problem. You have a feeble leg. You cannot sit cross-legged, so it's okay. You can sit on the chair. So the same goes with cane. Like that, yeah. Next question, please.
Second question, Rinpoche. First straight to Rinpoche regarding the remembering of the teachings in details and in order. Is it acceptable to write things down and review it later if we cannot remember everything in details and in order? Thank you, Rinpoche.
Absolutely. It's helpful to write down for two things. One thing, of course, it helps with your memory. It helps with recalling the teaching. And another thing is because in order to write down things, you have to listen very intently. pay a lot of attention, and then since you have to move your finger, your hand all the time, you are keeping your body active. So in this regard, even though the teaching can be monotonous and repetitive, usually most of the Dharma teachings are monotonous and repetitive, and there's a reason for that. And since the teachings are monotonous and repetitive, it's boring, and then you feel drowsy and get doze off during the teaching. It's quite common. So when you take a note, you have you're able to pay more attention, and also because of the physical activity, you are more attentive, you are more active, and so in this regard, it helps you from getting away from the boredom. So this is from personal experience. Yes, I would recommend that. Yes. Question, please.
Next question, Rinpoche. This question related to last week's teaching, I believe. Rinpoche, what is the proper way to follow the spiritual teacher and avoid pouring nectar into a poison pot? Thank you, Rinpoche.
Yeah. So very good question. So this is related to the three containers for the three pots, right? One being upside down, the other having a hole, and one having a poison in the pot. So the poison in the pot is us, or our mind. When our mind is distracted, not paying attention to the teaching, it is upside down. When our mind is distracted towards other things, when you are not paying attention to the teaching at all, it is upside down. When you are distracted to other things, it has a hole. And when your mind is poisoned, or when your mind is infected by many, not just worldly things, but with an ulterior motive, maybe to gain fame, maybe to so the motivation to become famous, motivation to amass a lot of wealth, the motivation is to let's say, okay, I will learn from this tradition, this sect, and when I get all the teachings from this sect, then I will learn everything from that school, and when I learn everything from that school, I will use that to attack that school, so that my school, my tradition, my lineage becomes the best. So you seem to think that you are doing a service to your tradition, your lineage, and by doing a service to your lineage, you're actually doing a service to the Buddha's teaching, right? Buddha Dharma in general. But what you are actually doing is you are factionalizing, you are disintegrating the Buddha's teaching in this regard. So if you have that, if you have such motivation, people do have such motivation back in the day during Buddha's time, and even nowadays people do have such motivation. So I will learn this and this and that from that particular school, and all the knowledge that I've gained from that particular school, I will use all of that, and I will pack it with all the knowledge from my own school, and then I will maybe through a competition or a challenge towards the best of the best from that particular school, and then I will certainly win, and when I win, my school will be the best. So these kind of I'm just giving you some ideas, like if you have these kind of another thing is the tantric practices. Tantric practices give you a long life, gives you good health, and it gives you the power to gives you the potential to empower other beings if you follow the rules, follow the rituals, and follow the instructions properly. So if you have the idea of, okay, I'm going to practice Tantra so that I can control other people's mind, I can read other people's mind, this and that. So you are power hungry. You're not actually hungry for enlightenment. You are hungry for power. You are hungry for wealth. So these kind of mindsets are the poisons. So poison here refers, the pot is ourselves or our mind. The pot is a metaphor for our mind. So when our mind is poisoned with such and such ulterior motives, then our mind is poisoned. And so in order to do that, okay, so the remedy is first of all, we need to clear our mind with all the negativities. First, before we come to the teaching, first have come with a pure mind. Pure mind, pure mind means no judgment, free from judgment. Free from judgment. Okay, my school is better, their school is worse. I'm a better practitioner. I have done this and that. So okay, get rid of all of that. Just I'm better. I'm superior. They are inferior. Okay, I'm inferior, they are superior. So that kind of judgmental mindset, get rid of all of that. That is what pure mind is about. So with the pure mind, then start the motivation of the bodhisattva, which is to attain alignment for all the sentient beings. When you have such motivation, then the poisons in the pot meaning the mind, is all washed out, clarified. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, dedication, please. 给我的耶牛多达拉